Looks right around Huntley. He reaches. Oh, that ball's out. That's live. Back the other way. Sam Hubbard, the Cincinnati Kid. Hubbard's got a convoy. Chased by Andrews. At the 30, the 20. He will score.
To the end zone, down the field, and it is deflected and gone. Touchdown, A.J. Green.
Over goes back to throw. Men are coming late. Looks right down the middle. There's Eddie Brown. He has it at the 35 to the 30. He may go 10-5. Touchdown.
Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up.
Yeah.
It is good.
Corey Dillon, he's gone. The knockout punch, you're looking at it. 65 yards.
And they're back to throw as the blitz is on. Goes long, intended for Collinsworth. He has it down to the 20. Touchdown. And Chris Collinsworth.
Throwing the long ball. Deep down the field. Chad Johnson's got it. Touchdown. Cincinnati.
Chase go. Oh my goodness, what a gear he just found. Chase for the touchdown. Wow, Chase is on the case.
It is no fluke. It is a fact. The Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Super Bowl 56. The play clock at 3. Shotgun snap. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. Jermaine Pratt has the football.
Yeah.
Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam. How about that?
All we're hoping for is for one more of those playoff calls at the end of this season. Jacob Tissett, Craig Sandlin here for the Week 10 recap. Chatterbox Bengals, as always, Tuesday night, 6 p. You know where to find us. Craig, another tough loss this week, but we were talking before we came on here. It feels like ages ago. I mean, this loss
I don't know
feels
if we
like
want to admit that,
years
Jacob.
ago. No, I will, because I've come such a long way since Thursday night that I feel like a completely different man from the last time I spoke to these people with you guys. Spoke to these guys
That's
with
fair.
you. I feel like that's a
That's
big
fair.
piece
We were
to
coming off
say.
a heartbreaking loss
Right.
on
It
Thursday
was
Night
late.
Football.
We were sad. It was all bad.
Yep. That's all very true. And,
Are you feeling better
it's
today?
been-
Optimistic, ready to get into it? Or still just
I
down and
think
sad?
I think similar to most. I think ultimately a lot of potential outcomes are going to be determined this weekend.
Mhm.
The Bengals and Chargers is a great matchup, and they're going to be in prime time yet again. Another chance to show the country what they're capable of. But this time they've got to close the deal, and they're going up against a pretty good Chargers team.
Yeah.
Chargers team who has one of the best defenses in the league, and the Bengals, if we're being honest, have struggled a little bit against better defenses.
For sure.
So we're going to see how it goes. I think the Chargers present an interesting challenge in front of them, and it's going to be a fun matchup for sure, and another good opportunity. The Chargers cornerbacks, not to get ahead of ourselves, the Chargers cornerbacks rank 4th in the NFL in coverage on PFF this year. So definitely going to be a fun one on Sunday, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, Jacob.
That's right.
Before we get
Can't
to
do that
Sunday,
yet.
we got to take a look back on Thursday.
That's right. We obviously, Bengals fell to the Ravens in Baltimore on Thursday Night Football, 35-34, and we're going to try to tell you why. I think that's what these shows have been about more or less this year, is why the Bengals have looked the way they've looked. We're going to start with some positives, though. Got to have some positives in these shows. If it was all negative, it'd be hard to get through it. So we're going to start with some positives, and one of those big-time positives was at the very end of the first half. A great play by Mike Hilton to bring down the receiver inbounds, keep that clock rolling. You can see at the end here how frantically the O-line's trying to get the ball back and run another play before the end of the half, but unable to because Mike Hilton follows the motion all the way around and then flies up about 7 yards to cut down a completely different receiver. A great play by Hilton, something that we've become accustomed to in Cincinnati, him flying across the field, making these big-time plays and big-time moments. We spent a little bit of time on him this last week, Craig, talking about how much he's meant to this team. And yet again, in a big-time moment at the end of the half, he makes another huge play.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I think the best part about it is that it wasn't even his man. I think watching
DJ
the play
Turner
back,
gets
DJ Turner gets caught up with Joseph Asai in coverage, and wide receiver works his way wide open. I think it was Nelson Aguilar, right? And Mike Hilton breaks off and is able to beat the man to the point, and Zay Flowers wasn't able to get in front of Hilton to cut him off, and that ultimately ended the half. And it was a big moment and kept the Ravens from having a chance to put some points on the board before half, and the Bengals went into half up 14-7.
And that was huge. That was huge. The momentum and the emotions at halftime were only what they were because of Mike Hilton's play there. I mean, we all know how short the length they had to go from that point. I mean, the ball is just outside the 50. Justin Tucker's field goal range is what another. I mean, it wasn't quite 1st and 10, so a little bit more than a first down, if 20 yards or so, 15 yards. That's not a whole lot of space to move that ball, especially if you're Lamar Jackson, you have another play, you spike the ball, you use the sideline. A phenomenal play by Mike Hilton to be aware of the situation, cut down the receiver. That, again, was not his responsibility, but still makes the play at a time of need for this Bengals defense. Before we get into a much larger cut-up of negative plays, Craig thought it was important to include some positive plays. And I think that is important. You gotta show both sides. Cam Taylor-Britt, obviously been talked about quite a bit with the stats and the breakdowns of what he was credited with this past weekend against the Ravens. But he also made some big-time plays, was inches away from a few interceptions, as you'll see here. And he really did put together a good game, Craig, in these instances. And then, as you'll see in the next about 3 minutes of cut-ups, it just blew up when he had bad plays. They were really, really bad.
My bad. I think I froze. Do you have me back?
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, look, I mean, I didn't hear anything of the last 15 to 20 seconds of what you said, guys, but my computer froze, had to refresh. But look, I mean, we want to jump on Cam Taylor-Britt a lot, and rightfully so. There's some plays in here that we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about some of the decisions that he's made and just the way he plays the ball a little bit. But at the end of the day, he's also made some really good plays, and this one is my favorite. If you watch, he's all the way at the opposite side of the logo there at the top of your screen, and he fights all the way down to be able to almost pick off that pass. I mean, that's a play that just shows the vision that he had. I think a lot of
look where
what
he's
we're
standing
see,
there.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable.
And he sees it right away. I mean, I can't tell who that is in coverage. Maybe Von Bell. But Von Bell gets beat, Kolar or Mark Andrews, whoever it is.
I think it's Hilton.
Runs deep. Oh, is it Hilton on the coverage? Either way, it doesn't matter. Long story short, you can see right away he breaks away. He's got 3 or 4 yards of separation, and CTB sees that and makes a break on the play and goes all out and is able to break up that pass. I mean, that to me, when I was watching film, was one of the more impressive plays in the entire game. Just watching where he came from on the field, the vision that he had in order to see that play was about to happen, and then to be able to get across the field in that amount of time to be able to get that pass break up. And obviously we would have loved for him to come away with that ball. There were 2 potential interceptions there that really could have completely changed this game. Wasn't able to come down with him. Unfortunate, but look, there are some positives from Cam Taylor-Britt. I think there are some things there that you can build on. But as we progress now into the not so great plays from Cam Taylor-Britt, I think there's a couple things that you're going to see as we roll through these plays. And the first thing that caught my eye is, this first play is a zone play, missed tackle. That's going to be a common theme here. He's going to miss tackles. Zay Flowers coming across is not a physical receiver. He's got to be able to cut that off. Zay Flowers is quick, but that's a tackle that you have to be able to make, big difference between 2nd and 6 and getting a first down there. And in that missed tackle really played into it. this play really is not a bad play by Cam Taylor-Britt, but he's giving 9 yards of cushion on a 1st and 10 to Rashad Bateman. And I think this is another thing that became a common theme for me as I was watching this film, is that Cam Taylor-Britt is consistently 5 to 8 yards off the line of scrimmage when he's covering a wide receiver man on man. And so when you run this play, Rashad Bateman's just going to run a simple stop route and a comeback route, but Cam Taylor-Britt's giving him so much cushion that it's just an easy pitch and catch for Lamar Jackson and Rashad Bateman. And it's just over and over again. Same thing here. Exact same play on the opposite side of the field. Cam Taylor-Britt, again, 8 yards off the line of scrimmage to start the play. Rashad Bateman goes and just going to be able to pick up easy yards. And again, that was a 2nd down and long. And because of the cushion that he's giving, just easy pitch and catch and 1st downs for the Baltimore Ravens.
And it's frustrating plays like that because you see those plays in that good cut up where he's able to cover so much space and he has those elite ball skills, able to get his hands on balls at full extension that you don't see plays a lot of other corners made. I mean, what did we see in the Kansas City game in week 2? One of the most impressive interceptions that I've ever seen from a DB. What do we always say? They're playing corner because they can't catch. That's certainly not the case with Cam Taylor-Britt. He has phenomenal ball skills. That's never been in doubt. But it seems like a lot of times this season, he's just in the wrong spot or doesn't know what's going on. And what was it, 2-3 weeks ago? We ran about a minute-long cut-up of plays where he was running zone where it was man and man where it was zone. I don't know what happened this year with Cam Taylor-Britt, but it seems like there's been some massive regression, which is what we're going to get into here in a bit. But if you noticed anything about that bad plays cut up for number 29, you might have noticed that it didn't have any touchdowns. And you're thinking, well, he allowed a couple touchdowns this week. Well, Craig was nice enough to give us a full minute of touchdowns just allowed by Cam Taylor-Britt.
Jacob, interestingly enough, so Cam Taylor-Britt was targeted 8 times during this game, gave up 7 completions for 116 yards. I will fully admit 84 of those were on the Tylan Wallace long touchdown. So, 84 out of 116 means that he was left with about 32 yards on 6 completions otherwise. But it just, to that previous clip, they're just picking apart over and over again. It just makes it super easy. Yeah. The problem is, and this is what we're about to get into, he was credited with 3 touchdowns allowed during this game. Some of them more his fault than others, but we'll get into it and we'll break it down a little bit. This was the cherry picking one to start with, right? Like missed tackle, which again was the story of the day for Cam. Simple out route, 8 yards of coverage, and then can't complete it. And in a 1 high safety look like that, you just can't miss a tackle. Nope. In that scenario. You've got to use the sideline to your benefit. Logan Wilson trying to chase down Tylan Wallace also didn't use the sideline to his benefit the way he should have. Ends up really pushing Tylan Wallace forward, which probably ended up being the difference between Geno Stone being able to make that tackle or not. And so, bottom line is that you've got to be able to use the sideline to your advantage. Cam Taylor-Britt right there, super aggressive, unnecessarily. They've got the 1st down with that catch. They've already gotten, the yards that they need. Make the tackle, live another day. Instead, he gets aggressive, tries to make the hero tackle, and it just doesn't work out.
The most frustrating part to me about this play is it's actually not Cam Taylor-Britt. I would certainly love for him to make that tackle, but sue me if in week 10 at this point I don't have faith in Cam Taylor-Britt making tackles. It seems like the rest of the defense does. The rest of the defense has the utmost faith in Cam Taylor-Britt making open field tackles. Because what do you see here as soon as he get those arms on him? I see 2 5s on Logan Wilson's chest, which tells me he's standing straight up. Jay Tufele's feet are basically flat in the ground. Now, do I think he's going to chase down Tylan Wallace? No, absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. But what do good defenses do? They pursue the ball in live plays. Jermaine Pratt at the opposite hash, stopped. Geno Stone certainly pulling up there at the hash. And you can very clearly see right there in that split second, Logan Wilson and Geno Stone turn it back on. That's the most damning second of film of the entire day right there. Watch Logan Wilson at the top of the 20 and Geno Stone between the hashes. They very, very clearly hit a second gear as soon as Tylan Wallace breaks through Cam Taylor-Britt. If they're going 100% the full play, Tylan Wallace does not score a touchdown there. Does that mean that the Ravens don't go down and score anyway? I don't know. But I know the Bengals lost by 1, and one super long touchdown that the Ravens had was an effort problem by our defense. That's the most frustrating thing that I could possibly see when it comes to watching film.
Yep. Same thing with Mike Hilton on that play too. Worth pointing that out. Mike Hilton was on coverage on Mark Andrews there, and you can see him at the bottom of your screen, stands, watches, does nothing, and then gets going and realizes, oh shoot, and by then it's too late. And again, this is Zay Flowers isn't on the field for this play. Rashad Bateman is not on the field for this play. You're talking about Nelson Aguilar and Tylan Wallace. You've got a single high safety look. Like you've got to be able to make a play there, and giving up the 8 yards of cushion, making the easy catch, and then not being able to tackle. If you're going to give up that kind of cushion, you have to be able to tackle.
Right. And this is a play that had ripple effects across the discourse around the entire game. This was right after the Bengals punted instead of going forward on 4th down. The Ravens turning that into a long touchdown made many, many people flip on that decision and say you should have went for it, you should have kicked a long field goal. The defense up until this point had gotten stops all day on full fields for the Ravens. The Ravens had only scored on short fields after turnover on downs and a fumble. This defense let a touchdown up because of an effort problem, not a blown assignment. Cam Taylor-Britt missed a tackle, which he's done all year. Why did the rest of the defense think he was going to make that? We've seen him miss that tackle 50,000 times for the first 10 weeks of this season, and the whole defense pulls up. I'm glad you pointed out Mike Hilton. You can't leave anyone out. I mean, Geno Stone, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, Mike Hilton, every single player on the field basically stopped playing. I don't understand it. And when you're a defense that's already lacking talent, and you know that, at this point in the season, we know, and they have to know it too, you have to know that you're going to have to try a little harder. What do we say about the guys that don't have the whole world talent? Well, they're first one in, last one out. They're grinders. They're hard workers. That's how they make it at this level. This Bengals defense doesn't have a ton of talent. None of those guys I listed as stopping on that play are the most talented players in the league at their position. They're guys that are supposedly hard workers. Geno Stone's an undrafted free agent who's clawed his way to a big-time second contract. Now he's quitting in the middle of a play? Maybe it's because he played for Baltimore and he's a double agent. I don't know. But this is unacceptable by the Bengals defense, and I don't know what else you can blame this on other than coaching. This seems to be a locker room issue. I don't know what else attributes players giving up in the middle of plays. I mean, any other team that we see with clips of players giving up in the middle of the plays, the first thing we talked about is their head coach. I mean, we saw it with DJ Moore in Chicago the past week. He pulled himself in the middle of a play. Everyone kills Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus. I don't see a lot of people talking about this. This is the same thing to me. This is 10 guys on the field thinking one guy has a play wrapped up and giving up on it before it's over. And that is completely unacceptable. Moving on to the next Cam Taylor-Britt. We'll watch it again to twist the knife a little bit more. That high step really, really feels good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that hurts. Again,
Cam
here.
Taylor-Britt with a nice 28.6 PFF tackle rating. It's great.
Very nice.
This one was so frustrating, too.
This one is incredibly frustrating. Absolutely. It's Lamar Jackson on a run, full tuck by Lamar Jackson on the QB power, and Cam Taylor-Britt. I mean, he bites as hard as you can bite. He bites as hard as you can bite, and Nelson Aguilar is wide open in the end zone. Not a soul around him. Easiest pass.
How many men are open in that shot right there?
Yeah, no,
he
certainly has his options. He certainly has his options.
Look, this touchdown
man.
goes against Cam Taylor-Britt, but Mike Hilton has to take some ownership too. Again, it's really tough for us because we don't know what the defense call was there. We don't know
for sure
whose man is expected to be covering there. But at the end of the day, that wide receiver, Mike Hilton, goes out of his way to avoid running into the wide receiver there to be able to go after Lamar Jackson. Like, you've got two corners on that side of the field, and neither one of them even think twice about covering Nelson Aguilar. Like, crazy.
Again, just
look at Mike
seems
Hilton.
to be guys that don't know what their job is. How is no one's job that receiver? Someone's job is that receiver. Someone didn't do their job. And that's the hard thing about being a Tuesday night coach and breaking down the film here with you guys. We try to do the best we can, but we obviously don't know whose fault that is. We don't know whose job that's supposed to be. But at the end of the day, it's someone's, and it's a blown assignment no matter who you credit it to. And the defense has to be better. It's the story of the entire year. It's guys not being where they're supposed to be. Mike Hilton or Cam Taylor-Britt, someone has to be in Nelson Aguilar's back pocket. I'd bet any amount of money that's Cam Taylor-Britt. But Mike Hilton has to get a shoulder on him or something. Absolutely infuriating. Yep. And it was the story of the night. It was the story of the night.
Can you play the sideline angle again? Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm trying to watch and see what the other coverages are. It looks like a man look based on how everybody goes out. And so to me, based on the way things were lined up, Mike Hilton is lined up over the tight end there, Mark Andrews. So he should theoretically be able to rush there, or at least stay back and make sure that's
Kolar.
not, maybe that's Kolar.
Because Andrews is open on the back
Kolar,
end.
and then Cam Taylor-Britt there on the wide receiver. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it looks like regardless of who's there, based on what I'm reading here, that's
Kolar
a Cam
blocks.
Taylor-Britt all
so
day.
If it is man, then Hilton full on rushing is exactly what he's supposed to do. Cam, I mean, you at least, even if that's not your job, see the wide open receiver and be like, hey, I'm gonna get this guy because he's standing in the end zone with no one around him, and maybe as the guy standing over here, I should guard him. I don't know, novel concept, but I digress and we move on. Just an infuriating play. It's these Lamar Jackson circus touchdowns that get under my skin, and that's not the last that we'll see of him.
Yeah, this one is simply Cam Taylor-Britt not being able to cover.
I
mean,
You
look at this play, and this is a simple stitch route where Rashad Bateman starting across the field comes back, and Cam Taylor-Britt can't stay with him. Basically falls over, and the difficult part is you've got Geno Stone there who probably is responsible for the backside on that, but when Lamar Jackson scrambles out of the pocket, it leaves Geno Stone in a situation where, okay, he's kind of spying a little bit and seeing, okay, shoot, if I don't come up on Lamar, he's wide open to the end zone. But guess what? You do come up on Lamar, and he'll beat you that way too, wide open to the touchdown for Rashad Bateman.
And just this angle, Rashad Bateman makes a cut. It's a good route. It's a good cut. Cam Taylor-Britt turns like he's in a wheelchair. I mean, this is the slowest change of direction I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he spins all the way around. You do see right away, as soon as the touchdown's caught, Cam turns around, he looks for Geno Stone. Obviously, what Craig said there, Stone coming up on the quarterback, was what blew that coverage. But there's no excuse for Rashad Bateman getting that much separation on you. No excuse. That should never happen. And I guess that's just another play that you give credit to Lamar because that's what he does. And, I mean, it's a jump. He shot a jump shot on the Bengals defense to win the game. How does that happen? He's the hardest quarterback to lose to in the league, I swear, because he makes it feel so ugly. He makes it hurt so much worse. I mean, I felt like we were going to have 10 sacks on Thursday night, and every time he just got out of it. And it's just miserable. And, I mean, you saw it there on those touchdowns. Every single time. It's just infuriating. Here, the last twist of the knife that we'll have tonight before we break down some other pieces of the Bengals here. The 2-point conversion. The final play of the game. Bengals went for the win. Zach Taylor said they weren't going to go out without a fight. They came to Baltimore to win, and that's what they tried to do. They put the ball in Joe Burrow's hands, and the Bengals went for 2. We'll get the obvious out of the way early, because I know it's what everyone wants to point out every time this play's ran. Yes, there's a hold at the top of the screen. Mike Gesicki is mauled by 2 defenders and falls, and the ref at the top almost pulls his flag, but I know Craig is going to get into that in a bit.
Don't get me started, Jacob.
From the other angle, we'll cover this as well. Joe Burrow hit in the head, face mask on Cody Ford, and then another face mask on the rusher on Amarius Mims. Now that that's out of the way, Craig, the 2-point conversion, regardless of penalties, take it away.
Well, the decision is right. I think the first and foremost, you have to address that. We talked about this before. I like going for 2 here. I don't have any problem with the decision to go for 2. Let's move that part. Let's move past that part. The next thing, though, is that, okay, you're on goal line here. Ultimately, what you get is you get both of your tight ends immediately double covered. This is a very interesting defense by Baltimore to double both of the tight ends. They know that that's one of Joe's favorites in the red zone, especially. And so it's leaving man on man outside on Yoshi and on Jamar Chase. The problem is that the routes that Yoshi and Jamar Chase have are really designed to get the defenders out of the way. They're not really options on this play. And so as you roll it, a lot of people want to get Joe Burrow looking at the top of the screen for Jamar Chase on a fade route because they say, oh, look, Jamar Chase has outside leverage. Just throw this ball to the corner and boom, you've got a 2-point conversion. The problem is that Jamar Chase, when does he look for the ball? Not until he starts to cut back in. Right. So that fade wasn't ever an option. Right. The option was both the tight ends at the goal line, which one is going to get the better look. And ultimately, I think Joe Burrow probably thought that there was also a hold against Tanner Hudson, was trying to throw the ball there to get that hold. Mike Gesicki also gets absolutely thrown around. The referee, as you mentioned, infuriating to me, turns to throw his flag, and then you can see it right there, puts it back away. So that part is really frustrating. You can see the hold from the end zone view really, really well. Gesicki goes to make his inside move, and the defender just absolutely grabs his shoulder pads and twists him down. There's no question in my mind that this is absolutely a hold and should have been called. The referee knew it. I think the referee probably thought the ball was in the air before Gesicki got held. Not true. But at the end of the day, look, the decision was fine. I think the problem is, okay, once that play progresses and you see double coverage on your number one read, I think Joe's got to think about something else. The problem is that all day he's been rushed by this Baltimore defense. Nnamdi Madubuike ends up with 10 pressures on the week is insane. Like, it just I don't know. I think ultimately the progression of the game and the way that he had been pressured over and over and hit over and over again probably got to him in that scenario. He thought he had to get the ball out quickly, and in that situation, it didn't happen. And then, as you mentioned on the back end, 3 different callable hands to the face or face mask calls or roughing the passer calls. That is absolutely a roughing the passer in every sense of the word. Again, I understand our off the bench hosts take that Bengals fans don't want those calls when it goes against them. Fans are hypocritical. It's fine. It's what we do. The problem, as you mentioned, I think on the show, is that we want it consistent. If we're going to get called against it, that's fine. We'll play and work our way through it. But other teams also have to be called through it. And I don't think you have the clip with you, but one of the interesting takes after the game was Joe Burrow saying, quote, "I've never gotten those calls, so I didn't expect it in that moment." That's a situation where, as the NFL, you need to really think about, okay, one of your best young quarterbacks in the NFL is not being protected.
Right.
You have made it a point over the last several years to protect your top tier quarterbacks. Whether that is publicly true or not, everybody can watch film and know that you're protecting your quarterbacks. Joe Burrow needs to fall in that same exact bucket as everybody else.
You'd think.
He can't take a hand to that face. The only thing that I could think of watching it, Jacob, and trying to like justify not throwing it is maybe the refs thought that the defender was being pulled down by the offensive lineman that was falling back. I don't remember who it was, if it was Volson or Karras, but he was falling back, and maybe that hand came down because he was being pulled down was the only thing maybe I could think of.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I there's just a lot in that play and a lot in that moment. You mentioned it earlier about Alex Kappa. Great.
Right.
We love him.
That's the one thing I wanted to talk about this play before we moved on, and it's he seems to be skating all the blame because of missed penalty calls. I haven't seen anyone talk about Alex Kappa getting put into Joe Burrow's lap on a 2-point conversion because of a missed face mask and a missed hold. I mean, I think the most embarrassing part of all the screenshots going around is our starting guard on his back at the feet of our $50 million quarterback. This is a problem. If we're running a 2-point conversion and we have to complain about face masks and hits to the head on our quarterback because he doesn't have 2 seconds to watch a developing route to the best receiver in football, I mean, what are we doing? Are we really going to argue that about flags, or do we just not have an O-line that's good enough to win football games against good teams? Joe Burrow was pressured for the 3rd most times of his entire career, and this is a problem that we supposedly fixed? This O-line lost us a game that Joe Burrow played phenomenally because he was running for his life all night. And when push came to shove, he had no faith in that group. And it turned out to be rightfully so. That's what happened on Thursday night. And it's a shame that it keeps happening. It's been Joe Burrow's entire career. I saw a tweet today, quarterback in the upper right, O-line in the bottom left, just another day as a Bengals fan. And that's absolutely true. Joe Burrow is the best at everything in the NFL. And the O-line can't run block, can't pass block. We have the worst guard tandem in football.
Yeah,
Marius Mims has been
just
good.
Mentioned it. In week 10, the Bengals guard duo ranked 31 out of 32 in pass blocking on true pass sets. It's just over and over. It's the same exact story every single time that this interior offensive line cannot get the job done. We're rolling with Cody Ford right now. I mean, I'm sure you saw these stats, so not to spend a ton of time on him, but Cody Ford, 8 pressures, all of them on true pass sets. Cordell Volson, 7 pressures, all of them on true pass sets. Alex Kappa, 7 pressures, 6 of which were on true pass sets. Mims gave up 6 pressures, 5 of them on true pass. Ted Karras, only 2 pressures the entire game, 1 of them on a true pass set. Like, when 4 of your 5 offensive linemen can't get the job done and you're Joe Burrow, of course you're going to be looking to get the ball out quick.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame him. Yeah, you just absolutely can't blame him. Before we move up the key plays, 3 positives. Going to run them. Get the vibes back up before we get into the rest of the season and the rest of the game breakdown. First one, Chase Brown's touchdown. And Craig knew I had to get it in here. It's Matt Lee making a play. It's Matt Lee making a play. It's what we've been asking for all year. He's in as the extra lineman. And he comes down and he clears out number 96. Knocks him straight down to his knees. And who else is that in there? Is that Drew Sample? Is that Eric All? Is that... No, that's Cam Grandy, undrafted free agent tight end, who's in the game and clearing him out, making a hole there, taking 95 across 2 gaps and freeing up the space for Chase Brown. A great play by a late round pick and an undrafted free agent. This is the type of production you want out of those kind of guys in order to think maybe the front office is moving in the right direction. We've drafted so poorly and developed talent so poorly over the last few years. To see a touchdown play develop in the trenches with a 7th-round pick center and an undrafted free agent tight end, man, that feels good, Craig.
Yeah, it felt really good. I continue to question, when are we going to start to see some of these guys like Matt Lee on a regular basis?
Yeah, and, I've seen a lot of asking for Karras to play guard.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know what Matt Lee's capabilities are if he can step into a guard role. I know Ted Karras played guard when he was with the Patriots, so he's certainly capable of that, but it's been several years now. At the end of the day, this Bengals offensive line has to figure out how to improve. Cody Ford is an obvious one because he's going to come off the field when Brown comes back, knock on wood. Hopefully that'll be this week.
Improvement there.
It's just a big jump right there, right? So your tackles theoretically are locked in. You don't have a whole lot of issues there, but you absolutely have issues at both guard positions. And so if Matt Lee can give you anything better than what you're getting right now out of your 2 guards, you absolutely have to think about that. And maybe it's one of those things where they want to get through the bye week after the Chargers and give him a couple extra weeks to be able to figure that piece out. But what you can't continue to have is an offensive line that is made up of guys like Alex Kappa scoring a 37.6 PFF grade and Cordell Volson scoring a 41.7 PFF grade against the pass. Like, when it's one thing if you're scoring those scores on a team that's going to run the ball 30 times like Pittsburgh Steelers or something like that. But if you're going to throw the ball 50 times a game, you need to be able to pass block. And right now, this interior defensive line absolutely cannot, or offensive line absolutely can't pass block.
I think that's a perfect segue. I'll keep these next 2 plays in my back pocket for the next segment. But I think regression has hit this Bengals team at a much quicker rate than I think they expected. And that's caught them off guard a lot, especially in the interior of the offensive line. When they brought in Kappa and Karras, they were 2 big-time signings, one of the top guards on the market and certainly the top center at the time, and Ted Karras leaving New England. And they were brought in after that Super Bowl run to reinvigorate this O-line and give Joe some protection because the front office recognized how big of a problem it was. It cost the Bengals a Super Bowl. And they went out and tried to fix those problems. And for a few years, Those two players were really, really solid for the Bengals. Karras and Kappa, more so Karras, but Kappa is still much, much better than he has been at any point this year, earlier in his career here in Cincinnati. But these guys, they've been hit by the old age, and the regression has hit them really, really quickly. And I think that's not necessarily something the Bengals have been prepared for. And the old heads in the interior, as our chat so kindly puts it, just isn't cutting it anymore. For a team that already lacks athleticism on the offensive line, you can't lose it so rapidly with these guys in the middle, and that seems to be what's happening now. Cordell Volson started on that Super Bowl team, but ever since then, it seems every offseason the talk has been he's going to take that next step and be a much better starting guard, and we've yet to see it. And I'm starting to question whether or not he's even an NFL guard at all. It's tough to say, but it seems like he's kind of stuck in the mud when it comes to his progression. And that's certainly not regression because he's stayed at this level his entire career. But I think when the other guys around him start to fall back, then it exposes him a little bit more. I know a lot of people have been asking for, and you just touched on it there, the Ted Karras move to guard. One of his best seasons of his career was at left guard in New England, playing for Tom Brady. I don't remember if that was a Super Bowl championship year or not. He won a couple of them up there, but still one of his best years in terms of PFF grades and everything along those lines, playing left guard for the Patriots. Obviously, he's only played center for the Bengals, but having Matt Lee, who is probably a center only, as the best backup lineman, you have to start asking the question if maybe the Bengals unit can be better overall if Karras is playing guard instead of center. I know neither of us have the answers right here in front of us, but is that something that you would hope for probably after the bye would be the first chance we would see a change like that?
I mean, you wouldn't think at this point in the season that a player would need a bye to be able to implement a change like that. But so here's the question. The question is Karras going to switch to guard or is Matt Lee going to go into guard? If Matt Lee's the answer, then that's something that could have happened without a bye. But if you are legitimately looking at Ted Karras switching out to guard and then bringing in Matt Lee at center, I could understand why Joe Burrow would want to get comfortable with that. Obviously, obviously Ted Karras needs to get comfortable at the guard position as well. I look at a lot of the film and I see a lot of plays where some of these offensive linemen, quite frankly, just look a little lost, right? And so it makes me question a little bit just the system as a whole. Yeah. And I know Frank Pollock's gotten a lot of heat, especially of late, about his system and his pass blocking and run blocking systems. And maybe it's a scenario where, quite frankly, it is a problem where, Frank Pollock's plan for the guard position just isn't clear enough, or he's not coaching it well enough, or whatever it is. And if that's the case, nothing else, Ted Karras's veteran presence and understanding of the offense will help him understand that better than what's going on right now. I mean, we looked at it last week, the number of plays where, Alex Kappa was running around blocking nobody. Yeah. I don't think Ted Karras will be caught dead blocking nobody.
Right.
That's not something that I think you have to worry about. And so at the bare minimum, I think you're going to get an improvement either way. For me personally, if Karras is the move to guard, I think you probably do it right after the bye. Give him the 2 weeks to really study up, make sure that he's ready to go on that. But also you need to know that Ted Karras is comfortable with that. I mean, I realize that, it is a situation where he's a vet and he'll probably do whatever it takes to win. But he's also, he's a prideful guy. I'm sure most of these athletes are. They take a lot of pride in their work, and we got to make sure that he's comfortable with the move as well. So
extended him.
Look, at the end of the day,
so not a guy that's going to be out of here anytime soon. Certainly going to be in this locker room next season. So no reason to sour a relationship of any kind with a guy who's been so phenomenal in this city, both on and off the field.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the last thing you can do is continue to run Cordell Volson out there, who ranks 79 out of 79 guards, and Alex Kappa, who's 77 out of 79 guards. Like, whether you move Karras to guard and you bring in Matt Lee, or you give Matt Lee a chance at guard, something has to happen. And there's not a whole lot else that you can change on the offense that needs to be changed.
Nope.
Right now, it's all about that interior offensive line. There's plenty of conversations on the defensive side about changes that can be made, but right now, from an offensive perspective, the best way to get Joe Burrow healthy and to make sure that he remains that way is to make sure that he's getting protection up the middle. And right now he's not doing that.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we saw in that 2-point conversion. As soon as that collapses, everything goes away, and that's why you can't have longer developing routes and everything along those lines. And that's some of the sentiment in the chat is when you know the O-line is what it is, how can you call plays like that have those longer developing routes and situations like that? And that's certainly a fair complaint along those lines. But the other point of regression that's really hurt the Bengals this season, and we spent a lot of time on it there in the key plays, but just briefly here because it was on my mind when I put this in the J-Bar, the step back that Cam Taylor-Britt's taken this year, it cannot be overstated. I mean, I don't even want to say necessarily from what he was last year to what he's become this year, more so from what Bengals fans expected, the step he was going to take and the jump, the leap he's taken backwards. It's a shock to the system, and I assume it's a shock to Lou Anarumo and a shock to the front office just as much as it's a shock to us Bengals fans. I think cornerback is probably near the top of the Bengals' needs this offseason, which is such a shame because you thought you had a guy who was a fringe all-pro talent coming into this year. I saw a lot of people throwing around that he was going to be one of the best corners in all of football, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't on the same boat, at least to some degree. I thought Cam Taylor-Britt was going to be nails all season long, and he hasn't been. He's been everything but. Big play after big play. You said it was 7 catches on 8 targets this past week for well over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just an abysmal performance from a guy who was supposed to be, preseason, a lockdown corner 1 on a championship caliber defense. What a crazy step back he's taken just 10 weeks into this season.
Yeah, his first 2 seasons, in 2022, he gave up 35 total catches. In 2023, he gave up 31 total catches. This year, he's already given up 37. It's just teams are going after him. He's obviously, yeah. You know, his first 2 years, his coverage grades on PFF, 69.2, 70.3. This year, it's down around a 59. It's just very clearly that, you know, two parts of it, right, is that one is that I think he's regressing some. 2 is that I think teams are finding out ways to beat him. And we just saw the type of cushion that he's given in his slow reactionary time. If I'm any sort of offense who's in need of 3 to 5 yards for a first down or anything like that, every single time I'm just running a quick stop route and hitting my guy to pick up 5 to 8 yards against Cam Taylor-Britt because he gives up such a cushion every single time. I don't know if that's a Cam Taylor-Britt issue. I don't know if that's a Lou Anarumo issue, if that's something else. But what can't continue to happen is have your supposed number 1 corner continue to be the guy that people are picking on. And I think you look at some of the biggest names in the game, Sauce Gardner, some of these other ones that teams refuse to throw the ball at. That's the complete opposite for the Bengals. Teams are attacking the number 1 corner in Cam Taylor-Britt. And it's not even that he's trailing the number 1 wide receiver. He's staying on his side of the field, but they're going after him time and time again.
And you predicted this.
He's giving up a catch on 66.1% of his targets right now.
Just abysmal. And you saw this coming. It was early in the season after a few games with just 1 or 2 catches, big plays, but we weren't pressing the panic button fully on Cam Taylor-Britt yet. And Craig, you said, I think it was after the Panthers game, that the Bengals actually won. You said the Panthers attacked Cam Taylor-Britt, and he allowed a lot of catches, and you wondered if maybe the rest of the league would take note that, hey, maybe you don't have to stay away from this guy. And it seems like since that point, you hit the nail on the head, and that's exactly what's happened. And as teams have attacked Cam Taylor-Britt, they've found more and more success in the passing game, which is incredibly frustrating because in a defense with a lot of holes and a lot of patchwork, and even going into this season, we knew there was going to be holes in this defense that we had to fix in the upcoming off seasons. We didn't think corner was going to be one of them, or at least not corner 1. And Cam Taylor-Britt is at best a corner 2 if he can figure some of this stuff out. But even right now, he might not be looking like that. So very, very frustrating as we go through this season with one of the guys we thought was going to be a bright spot on this team. But let's turn to the bright spots on this team. And there's 3 of them. And you can categorize them by the 3 big awards, because as of right now, if the Bengals had a decent enough record, they would be leading all 3 of these awards. Joe Burrow, certainly the MVP of this league if the Bengals were anything but 4-6. Jamar Chase, still near the top of the odds for Offensive Player of the Year, certainly a pick 'em. You'll see when it comes across the bottom here, it's actually coming across right now. Jamar Chase to lead the league in receiving yards, minus 125. Jamar Chase to lead the league in receiving touchdowns, minus 140. Massive favorite in both of those departments with 8 weeks of football to play. Just unbelievable output from those two offensively so far this year. And defensively, can't overlook it. 11 sacks for Trey Hendrickson, leading the NFL in that stat. Just unbelievable. And when you pull up ESPN and you look at it, usually when you look at this sheet and there's guys from the same team at the top of multiple stats, you think, oh, that team's a juggernaut. That team is at the top of the Super Bowl contenders list. So the quarterback's the passing leader, touchdowns too. The wide receiver's the yards leader, touchdowns too. And their edge rusher leads the league in sacks. Certainly this team's 6-4, maybe 8-2. One of the best teams in the league. No. The measly Bengals are 4-6. Doesn't matter that you have the best edge rusher in football, the best quarterback in football, the best receiver in football. You can't get wins. And I think that just shows you how bad the rest of the roster is. Because those three guys are competing at the highest level every single week. And it's starting to get to them. We saw after the game, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow echo the same sentiment. How is this where we're sitting right now with this kind of statistical output from the both of us? I mean, Jamar Chase has almost 1,000 receiving yards 10 weeks into the season. Unbelievable. And it doesn't matter. It's not translating to wins. And the defense has been one of the worst in the league. We have an edge rusher with 11 sacks through 10 games. That's unheard of. It doesn't make sense. If you put these numbers into a simulator before the season and said Joe Burrow has over 2,600 yards, Jamar Chase has over 900 yards, Trey Hendrickson has 11 sacks, we're 10 weeks into the season, what's the Bengals record? It would be no worse than 7-3. And somehow we're sitting here at 4-6, and I think that's why Bengals fans are all left with so much optimism as we look at the remaining schedule and the AFC playoff picture, which we'll talk about to wrap this show up in a little bit. But when you have your star players playing at this level, the best any of them have played at any point in their career, you always feel like you have a chance. And when Joe Burrow's going out there putting up 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, I'm going to feel like I have a chance. And I know the Bengals keep losing these games, but at some point they're going to turn into wins. And the schedule does lighten up. And when you look at these stats and these star players playing at a star level, that's why Bengals fans are still so optimistic. Really nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to add to that. I mean, you've got Joe Burrow and you've got Jamar Chase, two of the best in the NFL in their positions, and your offense is, quite frankly, it's thriving. I mean, most games it's scoring, it's putting up the points to win. I think you shared this stat on Off the Bench already, but I'll share it anyway, is that there's 2 instances in NFL history of a quarterback with 30 completions, 300 passing yards, 4 touchdown passes, including multiple 40-yard touchdown passes, and 1 or less interceptions in the game, and lost. And both of those instances are Joe Burrow against the Ravens.
That's right.
This year.
That's right.
It's unfathomable how bad your defense has to be that your quarterback is putting up 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Throwing for 300 yards, not giving the ball away, and you're not winning the game. It's just unfathomable. And you kind of make the joke in jest, but you did it, I think, this morning. Like, Jared Goff goes out and throws 4 interceptions and his team finds a way to win. The Bengals go up and throw 4 touchdowns and can't find a way to win. It's just incredible. And it all really comes down to this defense and their ability to get stops. And it's part of the reason why on Thursday night after this game, I was so frustrated with the decisions on 4th down that Zach Taylor made in multiple situations. And you've got the 2 best players on the team for sure, and 2 of the better players in the NFL on your team, and you're punting the ball away, or you're, I don't know, frustrating. At this point, that your defense is not good enough. You hate to say that you need to take points in every instance, but some of those 4th down situations where you could have kicked field goals and chose not to, or could have kicked a long field goal and chose to punt it away, those come back to bite you in the end. And over and over again, it's happening to this Bengals team, and they haven't been able to make it happen. And look, I think you probably saw this one too, but on 87 targets this year, Jamar Chase has already added 45.15 expected points above expected. On the other side, Trenton Irwin on his 10 targets, negative 6.57.
That's what happens when you only get 10 targets on a season and one hits you in the face in the end zone.
Yeah.
That's how you get that EPA. It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
It really is.
We can't let a 428 and 4 touchdown game by Joe Burrow and an 11 catch 264 3 touchdown game by Jamar Chase go away without showing any plays of the two of them. So this is a good segment to kind of shoehorn those in, because maybe they weren't key plays, but they're still too good to go unnoticed. This play by Joe Burrow, man, just unbelievable. This is. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but he's incredible. The ability to just climb in the pocket with your eyes locked downfield, finding the open target, pump fake right at the line of scrimmage, and find Jamar Chase for a conversion. There's no quarterbacks that can do this in the league. You said it after the game on Thursday night. Joe Burrow is the best passer in the league, and I certainly agree. He is unbelievable. And it's not just one time, it's multiple times. Joe Burrow does this stuff all day, and we saw it on Thursday night. That's back foot over the linebacker's outstretched arm right into the bucket of Jamar Chase for the first down. Just a fadeaway shot off the back foot straight to your number one wide receiver with 3 defenders in a perfect triangle around him. Just unbelievable. Yeah. Number 9's incredible, and he's playing at a level that we haven't seen to this point in his career, quite honestly. He has been remarkable, and it's not translating to wins, and it hurts me. It hurts me for him, because I never thought that we'd see this level of play from our quarterback. And in all honesty, Jamar Chase as well, and be sitting here below 500 trying to scratch and claw into the 7 seed. I mean, Craig, we pulled this in right before we started. We talk about the route tree of Jamar Chase and how poor it is in this offense a lot. This is all we've been asking for. This is as pretty as it comes. 3 touchdowns, all over the field, crossers, deep shots, rack. Just beautiful. That's how you use a star receiver. Take notes, Zach Taylor. Every week. Do that every week. Do this every week. 17 targets. Good. Every week. I don't understand the aversion.
I don't care if he's in the lineup or not.
Exactly.
Every week.
There's an aversion to using Jamar Chase, and this is what happens when you get him the ball. He's incredible. Force feed him if you have to.
And
101
I pointed
yards
it out to you
Craig.
before the show. Yeah, I pointed it out to you before the show. I don't think you had noticed it yet, but 0 targets behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
How many times have we yelled at Zach Taylor during a game or after a game, telling him stop throw these stupid screens behind the line of scrimmage and just hope that Jamar gets loose? I have no problem with him throwing those every once in a while. I want to make sure that that's clear. Like, there is place in this world for Jamar Chase to get a ball in a screen pass and for him to work his way and fight for yardage, but it shouldn't be nearly as often as he was doing it. And there were several situations where they were relying on that play way too much. And so now for this game, for him to have 17 targets and 0 of them to be behind the line of scrimmage was so promising. It really just kind of showed you, like, there is an opportunity, and like it, not to like harp on things that we've already touched on, but this is exactly why we've been yelling for this offense to get creative all year long and to use its weapons all year long. Because Zach Taylor for so long has been such a bland, boring play designer and play caller, and he's not utilizing his weapons to the fullest of their abilities at all. And so it was good to finally see him really capitalize on having the weapons that he has, and for Jamar to get the kind of target share that he really deserves. And at the end of the day, the Bengals have to find a way to protect Joe Burrow better. But there's nothing more comforting as a quarterback in the NFL than knowing that you have a wide receiver who's on the exact same page with you at all times, and that you can rely on to be in their spot regardless of the situation. And you just saw it there with 2 great plays from Joe Burrow scrambling, where Jamar Chase was exactly where he needed to be when he needed to be there.
That's right. And just one more, if we got the graphics, we might as well use them. One more I wanted to throw up here in this segment. Bengals continue to just pray that Trey Hendrickson gets the job done when it comes to rushing the passer. League average, as you can see right there on the bottom, 4.57 yards. Trey Hendrickson well below that, 3.84. No one else even sniffing it, though. Joseph Osai, 5.7. But don't worry, Craig. Lou said today that he loves what Joseph Osai's been showing him and not to expect to necessarily see much more of Myles Murphy because he loves what Joseph Osai's been showing over the last few years. Joseph Osai, the player whose contract is up after this season and the Bengals almost certainly aren't going to re-sign, versus Myles Murphy, the first-round pick who's here for the next 2 years and has actually been playing relatively well in the limited snaps that he's been in the game. So just an interesting snippet there. And just in case you guys missed it, that's a 5.69 average yards away from the quarterback for Joseph Osai. But Lou loves what he's seeing from him. So that's
Do you know how hard it is? Do you know how hard it is to be 6 yards away from the quarterback on average?
Pretty hard,
Craig.
Pretty hard.
It's pretty tough.
It's pretty hard.
And
somehow Sheldon Rankins is further. Jeez Louise, man.
So here again, I don't know if you saw it or not, but statistical comparison, Murphy, Osai, and Hubbard over the last 3 weeks. Okay. So Myles Murphy get off is averaging 0.75 seconds get off.
Yep.
Joseph Osai 0.86. Sam Hubbard over a second of get off.
I mean that
so slow.
Over a second?
So
Are you kidding me? That's insane.
So slow. So over those 3 games, Myles Murphy is averaging 8 1/3 pass rushes per game. Joseph Osai 13 and Sam Hubbard 13 2/3. Despite the lower opportunities, Sam Hubbard only 2 pressures in those 3 games. He's got 40 opportunities to pass rush, 2 pressures. Joseph Osai 39 opportunities, 7 pressures. Myles Murphy with his 25 opportunities, 6 pressures. That's a pressure rate of 24%, Jacob.
Right.
And yet we're going to rely on a guy like Sam Hubbard in his 4.9% pressure rating. It makes no sense. 12 snaps on passing downs for Myles Murphy, 25 for Joseph Osai, 19 for Sam Hubbard. Let's say you do believe in Joseph Osai and what you're getting out of him. You're believing in Sam Hubbard still today?
That's a bigger problem
Myles
that no
Murphy?
one's talking about. Sam Hubbard needs to stop playing. Osai, Myles Murphy, 100% of the snaps. And Myles Murphy more than Osai, please. Get him in the game at some point. We have to know what we have. And maybe it can be a spark. He had 6 pass rush attempts in true pass rushes against the Ravens this week. 3 of them were pressures. 3 of them were screens or quick outs. He's a productive pass rusher when he's in there. At least he has been a little bit this season, more than we've seen. So I just cannot wrap my head around why they can't play him. And then to double down in a press conference that you love what you're seeing out of a guy that hasn't gotten pressure all year long, incredibly frustrating. And that brings us to how desperate the Bengals are right now. And it's fault of their own.
Just real quick, it makes it even more frustrating when your interior defensive line also isn't getting anything done, right? Like, we're talking about 3 of your 4 edge rushers not getting it done. You're talking about 4 of your 5 interior defensive linemen not getting it done. I mean, in pass rush win rate through the 10 weeks, Jay Tufele 136th out of 142 interior defensive linemen. Chris Jenkins 121 out of 142. Chris Jenkins was not brought here to be a pass rusher. No. I recognize that. Jackson 115 out of 142, and Sheldon Rankins, who really needs to be better. Like, Sheldon Rankins is a guy who paid to come in here and be a pass rusher. To be ranked 102nd out of 142 interior defensive linemen isn't good enough. We got to get more out of him. So, but a lot of it goes back to you're not getting help anywhere else. And so people are very easily able to key in on guys like Trey Hendrickson and BJ Hill, who are winning, and they can leave Sheldon Rankins one-on-one and not have to worry about it. BJ Hill's been awesome. Right. I should have pulled the clip of, I said it after the show where it reminded me of BJ Hill when he was laying on the ground, looking under the couch, looking for a cat. I should have pulled that clip, but BJ Hill's been great. He's actually ranked 29th out of 142. Trey Hendrickson, we know how good he's been. 3rd out of 132 edge rushers this
ridiculous
year. He's been awesome.
Yeah, playing on another level. And the issue that keeps arising with this Bengals defense is of the names we listed and have talked about in those key plays and blown coverages all year long, those names that keep coming up are the big free agent signings or high draft picks that haven't been able to live up to the expectation that was set out for them when they were brought into this team to try to turn this unit, especially the defense, around. And that's led to a lot of desperation by this Bengals team. We talked about Taylor-Britt's regression. With Dax Hill injured, obviously, at the beginning of this year has put this secondary in a tough spot right away. But, I mean, obviously, you still expected a lot of these guys to play at a much higher level. Geno Stone has been horrendous in the back end. He was brought in as the guy that was supposed to change this defense back to what it was when Jesse Bates was here, and he's been worse than Nick Scott, which is hard to do. So that's been abysmal, and it's led the Bengals to a point here where we're at week 10, and they're bringing in 3, 4, 5 guys off their couch in mid-November to try to work them out and bolster this team. We had Xavier Howard, Gary Brightwell, Leonard Fournette, and I believe Albert Okwuegbunam were in town for visits this past week. Xavier Howard was extended an offer, turned it down, went back home, down to Florida, so all signs point to that deal not getting done. Gary Brightwell was signed by the Bengals to add some depth to the running back room. He's going to be on the practice squad, probably just an injury piece if someone were to go down to call him up and fill into that role. Leonard Fournette worked out for the Bengals. Nothing came of it. And then no other news regarding any of the other visits. So it seems like the Bengals, at least for this spurt, are done adding to the team through free agency. But it's nice to see this front office try. Look, it's hard to get excited about a bunch of 30-year-old off-the-couch guys, and it's 2 weeks after the trade deadline. I don't know how much trying it actually is, but hey, they're picking up the phone and calling.
It's nice to see them try. They didn't get a deal done, Jacob. How much trying did they really do?
I didn't expect to get them in town. And can you lowball Xavier Howard? Can you lowball a guy that's been on his couch for 2 years with those legal concerns? Is that possible? I think whatever he was offered, he should have been happy with what he was offered. I saw he wanted a 3-year deal. Yeah, fly back home. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's crazy.
I'm not really upset about missing out on playoff Lenny. That part is fine. Like if he looks slow or whatever, so be it.
Yeah.
Would have guaranteed us a playoff spot though, Jacob.
That
would
is
have
true.
been nice.
That is true.
Can't have playoff Lenny on your team without a playoff spot.
No,
but,
yeah, that's the
it
thing
would have been
about
nice to get
playoff
Xavier and Howard. I do feel like the Bengals are missing, that coverage corner, and he seems at least that he would have been an improvement. He's shared a lot of videos about the work that he's put in to stay in shape and stay ready for an opportunity. It's hard to say. But ultimately, I think to your point, like if you're Xavier and Howard and you've been out of the league and you're trying to get an opportunity, I don't know about you, Jacob, but I'm trying to get an opportunity to show tape.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I feel like by week 10, you should be pretty desperate. Both sides.
Well, yeah, but I also know that, that if you're going to take an opportunity and put your body on the line, that there's probably a certain number that you're willing to do that for. And keeping in mind that it's going to be a prorated contract where he only gets paid for 8 or 9 games, that $600,000 that they were offering or whatever may not have been as attractive as it may have been elsewhere. And again, the other piece of it that we don't know the answer to is how convincing was the sales pitch of the Bengals for them to pitch him on that, right? Like if Xavier Howard got brought in for a workout by the Kansas City Chiefs, do you think his price tag would be the same as he is being brought in for a workout by the Cincinnati Bengals?
Certainly not.
I don't know. We'll never know, Jacob.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. The last thing, I've said my piece on Off the Bench. I'll just briefly here. With the playoff picture, I think everyone knows where the Bengals stand at this point. Fans are all kind of turning to the same page. Everyone's kind of catching up where it's you got your work cut out for you. And you got to win almost all of the games in front of you, especially 2 of them. 2 must-win games in terms of the AFC playoff picture. That's this week against the Chargers. That's week 17 against the Broncos. 2 most important games remaining on this schedule because those are the 2 teams ahead of us. If the Bengals wanted to get into the playoffs, they're going to have to beat those teams to have that head-to-head tiebreaker unless some people think the Bengals are going to win out, which I'm personally not in that camp. So winning those 2 games is absolutely crucial. Other than that, the Bengals are within striking distance. So currently sitting as the 9 seed in the AFC, Colts and Broncos and Chargers ahead of them. For that wild card spot, I'm knocking off the 5 seed. 5 seed's not even in my mind. Doesn't even count anymore because one of those AFC North teams has taken it. So we're playing 4 teams for the 6 and the 7. That's where the Bengals are at right now. And I'm feeling pretty good about it, if I'm being honest. You got to win tonight or Sunday night. You have to beat the Chargers. But if you beat the Chargers, you're sitting in a really, really good spot. You're back in the mix AFC record-wise with 4 losses. That would stick the Chargers with their 3rd. You're clawing back towards 500. You have a chance the next week to get there, or I guess after the bye against the Steelers, to get back to 500, which is always the magical point to start talking about playoffs and everything like that. The AFC is so weak. I think it's only going to take 9 to get you in if you win those 2 head-to-heads. Bengals have to win this week against the Chargers, but Craig, we could be talking late night Sunday about a pretty playoff picture.
People don't want to acknowledge this, Jacob, but the Bengals control their destiny.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people want to talk about, strength of schedule and who's playing who and how many games are the Broncos going to win and how many games are the Chargers going to win and how many games are the Colts are going to win and all this other stuff. But as we sit here today, you play the Broncos, you play the Chargers. You don't get a chance to play the Colts, but I'm not worried about the Colts.
Just
I
keep
know
starting
it's hard
Flacco.
to say. I'm not that worried about the Colts. So you control your destiny. If you beat the Broncos, you're both 5 and 6, and you've got the head-to-head. Like it's fairly straightforward, and whether people want to acknowledge that or not, it is what it is. And the Broncos still have to play the Chargers. They have to play the Bengals. Right. They have to play the Chiefs. They have to play the Colts. The Bengals control their destiny. And whether mathematically that's true or not, I guess I don't know. Maybe it's mathematically not, but I think it is. If you beat the Broncos and you win the rest of your games, you're in. Whether or not they can win every game, I don't know. But I mean, the beauty of this season is that the Bengals are still in the mix. They still have hope. I'm not all the way in. You know me, Jacob. I'm not all the way in.
I know. We almost had you.
But you really almost did.
Oh, we almost had you.
But the fact of the matter is still that, this is a Bengals team that is, at least in my eyes, likely still bound for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think that they control their destiny. And, from this point forward, all you can do is control what you control. And if you do that, you're going to be in the playoffs playing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And
that's right.
That's all that anybody can ask.
It's amazing to be in this position with how this season has gone so far, to still be within striking distance and have a chance to make the playoffs. And once we get into the playoffs, I'm going to bet on Joe Burrow. I certainly think the Bengals have a shot if they get into the dance. And I know that all the other teams in the AFC are rooting against the Bengals getting into the dance, because out of those wildcard teams that we just named in the hunt for those 3 spots, certainly the scariest resides in Cincinnati and plays in Paycor Stadium. So I think a lot of Broncos fans and Bo Nix fans in Kansas City and Houston and Baltimore over the next few weeks, because in that first round, certainly the short straw for one of those division champions to have Cincinnati come to town if they were able to sneak in. So certainly what we're rooting for. And as the season progresses, we'll get a clearer picture of what that will require for the Bengals to get in, and we'll be able to talk more intricately about rooting interests and the playoff machine. We'll get into the playoff machine. I'll find a way to get it up here, and we'll play with it on the show at some point. Get the Bengals in there. Maybe get them at the pretty high seed. That's always fun to have everyone lose out.
You should be able to screen share, I think. We can do this.
Yeah, no, I will.
We'll do it.
I'll just have to pull it in before the show. That'd be great. We'll definitely do that coming up for you guys. For tonight's Chatterbox Bengals, we'll catch you again Thursday at 7 p.m. as we break down everything going in to Sunday Night Football's matchup against the Chargers. But for this edition, for Jacob Tissett and Craig Sandlin, that's going to do it for Chatterbox Bengals. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time.